Welcome back to our Lost Artistry Lash channel. Guys, today is a video that hits very close to home for me. For years and years, I struggled to get really nice looking lash sets on round-eyed clients. I would never post them on my social media. I always just felt disappointed. And if I'm being completely honest, sometimes I would just feel like maybe lashes just don't look good on round-eyed clients. I found the outer corners became droopy or the set just looked off as a whole. It never left me feeling happy with the final result. It wasn't until years in my career that I realized that I was mapping my client completely wrong. I was actually making a bunch of mistakes on my clients that I wish someone had told me so many years before. So today is all about sharing my tried and true tips and tricks on round-eyed clients so that you no longer have to struggle with them ever again. Let's get into it. In order to showcase the perfect mapping to you today, I'm going to use our digital tools here. And I am going to pull in a couple different lash sets so you can see what I mean about the impacts that lashes have when you use the right mapping versus the wrong. So the first issue that people have when it comes to lashing round-eyed clients like this is that they often opt for a cat eye lash mapping. And the reason why they opt for that makes complete sense, and that is because the eye is so rounded that we want to sleek it out, right? But the huge issue that we face is that as soon as we use a cat eye mapping on this client, all of a sudden, the lashes just start to droop on the outer corner. And we honestly just end up accentuating the downward sweep of the eye shape, which is something that we don't want to do. We want a cat eye to look lifted, not downturned. So let's grab a cat eye lash mapping and see how that looks on our client. So this is a traditional cat eye mapping where the longest length sits on the very outer corner. A lot of people think that in order to give a client a cat eye type effect, they must use a cat eye mapping where the longest length sits on the outer corner. But let's see how that mapping would look on my client who has round eyes. Let's bring that in. Okay, so my client's eye shape goes like this, and that I'm lining the outer corner up with the outer corner of the eye. Now, I'm gonna just work how the lash set goes. This is what a traditional cat eye lash mapping would look like on my client if I followed it exactly like a cat eye mapping shows. My mapping would probably look a little something like this. 14, 13. This one would probably be 12, 11, 10, 9, and 8. And of course, this is a wispy set, so there would be other lengths mixed throughout. But that's a general overview of what this type of mapping would look like, shaping-wise. Now, what happens when we use a mapping like this on round-eyed clients is with the longest length standing on the outer corner, we literally just accentuate and draw attention to the downward angle of the lash set. Cat eye to look more lifted. So we maybe want our longest length to sit somewhere around here. So our ultimate goal is to avoid the lashes looking droopy like this and creating more of a lifted type effect. But how do we do that is the question. Let's dive into this. In order to really outline how you do this, we need to first look at the entire eye shape here. So the eye lifts up and then sweeps down very fast. In order to draw attention to this area here, which is where we want the cat eye emphasis area to be, then we need to do some really tricky stuff with our mapping. We need to first have our clients look at us just like this, a straight on view of our client, and dot the eyes with the eyes open. As soon as this client closes their eyes, the eye's gonna look level. And what we need to do as lash artists is figure out where we want to start changing our lengths in order to bring the overall shaping that we're looking for to life. AKA, what we're basically doing is creating a cat eye effect without using a cat eye lash mapping. And there's quite a bit to this. To this point right here, where the eye starts to dip back down, we want to be really careful with the lengths that we use. Now, I will say this client as a whole has very low brow spacing, aka the space between her lash line and her eyebrow, which means that she's gonna make short lengths look dramatic in this area because there's just not a lot of room to fill with long length lashes. So this client can make quite literally a 10 millimeter in this section look long. Crazy. Isn't that wild? Because we think some people use 10 millimeters on the inner corner and they have no issues with it. But this client, if I were to use a 13 millimeter on her, her extensions are probably going to reach to the top of her brow, which is absolutely wild. So we definitely want to steer clear of long lengths in this area here where there's not a lot of space. Now, we want to bring our attention to the outer corner of the eye. That's really important. So mapping wise, what we're gonna do is use softer curls out here where the eye naturally lifts on its own. The reason why we're choosing softer curls here is because the eye is already so lifted that why would we use curls that are lifted and lift it even more? That would be crazy. We're gonna end up with a result that we don't like. The more curly the lash we use, the more lift we get. Curl equals lift. So if we're looking for a lot of curl, we're gonna go CC, D, DD, and L or M equals lift. These curls. Now, CC being the least amount of lift and DD being the most. So the eye's already lifted here. We don't want any curls that are going to lift it more because as soon as we lift this area, we're now taking attention away from this area. Think about it. This area is already lifted and we want to create the illusion that this area is lifted, but it's pointing down. So why would we make this area look more lifted than it already is when we want this area to look more lifted than this area? So you're really fighting against the natural eye shape. If you start lifting this area, then you have to lift this one extra in order to make it look more lifted. So instead of using these curls here that create lift on the inner to middle of the eye, we're gonna use soft curls like J, B, and C. These curls are soft. That means they're going to accentuate what the client already has, but they're not going to change it. And we're not trying to change this area. We don't want to change it. We're just trying to add darkness and softness to that area. So in order to choose between J, B, and C curl, J being the straightest curl, B being the middle, and then C being a little tiny bit lifted, but not overly, we would look at the client's natural lash lift. If the natural lashes are super lifted, we would choose a J curl because we don't want to accentuate them any further. So if their natural lashes are lifted, opt for J or B curl. If the natural lashes are downturned or pointing down at all, you might want to opt for a C curl, just to counteract the fact that they point down. If you want more information on that, we do have a styling webinar that is so inexpensive. Please check it out. You will not regret it. It is so detailed. Honestly, if you like this video as a whole, you will love that webinar. So we've now decided that the inner corner to the middle until the eye starts descending down. And you're gonna make note of this with the client looking directly at you. You cannot use guesswork when it comes to round eyes. Do not have them close their eyes and then draw on the pad thinking you know where the section is because it's not gonna work out. I've tried it a million times, it's failed every single time. So instead, have them look at you, put a little dot on the client's eye, just use a non-toxic Sharpie or an eyeliner, something that can be washed away. And then you know when the client closes where the dot will be. I can tell you with certainty, you're gonna eventually look at that dot and you're gonna question if you put the dot in the right spot. And then when the client opens their eyes, you'll be like, oh, I did, even though it looks so off with the client's eyes closed. So let's say, just because most people have it in their cart, let's say we're using C curl in here. C will be in here. Now, we know that curlier lashes create lift, and we do want lift out here. So we might want to opt for a curlier lash in this section only. Be careful with which curl you choose, because if you put a C curl in this section and then jump to a DD curl in this section here, it's gonna look like the DD curl is even shorter because the more curly the lash is, the more it curves over itself. Think about it. We have a D curl that looks like this, and a C curl that looks like this. The C curl is gonna look a lot longer than a D curl simply because of its curvature. So if you were to do something like that, where you're putting a C next to a DD, you're gonna have to jump up in at least a couple millimeters in order to make them blend. So as a rule of thumb and a safe bet, from this point over, you're gonna jump up and curl, but only by one. So this is literally the way that the curls go. J, B, C, 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 D, 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 and then L and M are in their own category. So if I were to use a J curl on the outer corner, I could jump up to a B or C safely just because they're so soft, but I can't jump from a J to a CC and have it look clean. So from a C, it's a safe bet to go from a C and then in this section here to a CC, because I know they're gonna blend really well and it's not gonna look awkward. The CC is just gonna help lift the extensions up, making them look more noticeable and more lifted. So we've now outlined the curls that we would use for the set. So less curl in here, more curl out here. But now what about lengths? I find when I teach students this, they always get caught on our sections having to be the same size. So let's say you want to use 6 lengths per the entire eye. Then usually what I see people do, and what I used to do, is break my set into 6 equal parts. It looks something like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, approximately. They're all about the same size, and it would go something like this: 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That is not gonna work with round eye clients at all. Instead, our sections are gonna be a little bit weird. So where the eye naturally lifts on its own, we're not trying to extend it and make it look super long. So we might only have a couple sections in this area. If you're like me and you want to use really short lengths on the inner corner, then you would want to jump quickly from, let's say, 5 millimeters to 6, 7. Then I might use a huge section here. This might be all 8 millimeter. Isn't that crazy? Have you ever seen anything like that before? So 5, 6, 7, and then all 8 millimeter. Now, we know we don't have a lot of brow spacing here, so please note that if your client had a crazy amount of brow spacing, instead of going 5, 6, 7, 8, you could go 8, 9, 10, 11. Like, there's no right or wrong. You're still following the same formula no matter which lengths you use. So my 8 millimeter is gonna extend all the way to where the eye starts to descend down. From this point over, I need that to look lifted. So what I'm gonna do is jump up in my curl to a CC. We already discussed that. Then I'm gonna go 9, 10, 11, 12, because we're going down by like millimeters rapidly here. So you're not gonna jump up it by just 1 millimeter in a section, because you're gonna create more of a doll eye type effect. The eye's still gonna look rounded. So in order to counteract the fact that it's sweeping down so fast, you must go up in length really fast. I'm talking like two lashes per section. Crazy. So we'll go 9, 10, 11, 12, and then about here. So that's gonna be our 9, 10, 11, 12, maybe even 13 millimeter section, okay? And then back down here, we're gonna jump back down. So we're gonna go 11, 10, and then we're gonna actually avoid these very, very outer natural lashes. I know that goes against everything that you were probably taught, but trust me, you don't wanna lash them. They usually point down, see these? They usually point straight down, and if you lash them, you're gonna droop the outer corner, even if your mapping's perfect. So don't even bother mapping them at all. And I'm gonna quickly show you now why that's important. So we now know where our lengths are gonna go. I'm just gonna erase those so that's not super messy. Now, our lengths are really important, but our direction is really what brings this set to life. Since our lengths are 9, 10, 11, 12, only to about here, if I'm to direct them up, they're gonna reach up like this. it's not really the look that we're going for. We want it to look like it's swept out, right? So our directional pattern needs to look something like this. Right? In order to make it look lifted. We want our set to look a little something like this. Not exactly, but you know what I mean. We want it to look lifted in this area. Now the thing, I'll put a set on later, promise. So if we want to direct our extensions out like that, watch where I start. So this is crazy, but pretty soon after where the eye descends, like maybe 4 or 5 lashes after, when you use your 12mm lashes, it's probably gonna start like right here. And then what you're gonna do is direct it out, which is going to actually look like you placed it right here, which is absolutely nuts. So even though you placed your extension over here, because you worked with the directional pattern, if many people were to look at your set, they think the extension was placed here, not realizing that the tips are not necessarily where the lashes are placed. So your directional pattern will be really important. So you're gonna place lashes that direct out here. Don't mind my drawing. But here's where it gets really, really, really important. If we continue doing that with our back down to our 11 and 10s, we continue directing out here. And again, what are we doing? We're drooping that outer corner. So we can't do that. So we're directing out for only a small section, about here. This section here is the only section we're directing out like that. And that's gonna keep it looking nice and lifted. Now you're probably thinking, what about the rest of the lashes? Because remember, that's stopped about here. So the rest of the lashes, instead of directing out, we're gonna actually direct them up. And what they're gonna do is they're going to lift these extensions here up. It's gonna hold it up into place instead of drooping it down. Now, if you want more information on direction, please do check out our online courses. If this video is like blowing your mind, our online courses will completely change your business. I can 100% promise you that. But directionally, we're going out here and up on the outer corner, and then avoiding these very, very outer corner lashes. Let me know if you guys have any questions on that. Now, lastly, I know I talked about curls. So C curl on the inner, CC on the outer. Because the eye descends so far down, immediately what happens when we put long curly lashes on the bottom layer of these clients, they kind of swoop down and then they curl up. So we're really trying to avoid long lengths on the bottom section here. So even though we went up to 12mm in this section, we want to keep it shorter on the bottom layer only. So your top layer would be up to 12 and your bottom layer would probably not exceed 9mm. That sounds crazy, but utilize your top and middle layer for your longest lengths. I promise it's going to look so much better. You can also stick with a C curl on just the bottom layer and then CC curl for the rest, and that complements the set so much as well. Okay guys, let's see what the proper lash mapping would look like on this client, and then I'll also add in a couple sets that I've done on clients before that really shows that this works. Oh, just kidding, I'm not letting you go yet. One other thing that I also like to do is when the set's done, if I feel like it still looks a little bit underwhelming in this area here, I disconnect just 1 or 2 lashes in the set. So after the set's done, I get my client to open up. I have the biggest tip for you ever. When the client opens their eyes, guess what? You can have them close again and you can continue working. I see people all the time who finish a set and they're like, oh, I don't like that lash, and then they don't feel like they can go back in and take it off. But you can do anything you want. If the set's done and you look at it and you don't like something about it, there's probably a very simple fix for it. And if you spent 5 minutes extra, it would look a 10 out of 10 better. For example, if you notice droopy lashes in your set, go in and remove those couple lashes. It's gonna actually add to your set instead of taking away. So that's a really good tip. And then same with disconnecting lengths. So in my 12mm section, which we now know, because I said it a million times, is about here. If I felt like it just needed a little something extra, I could disconnect that and I could put just one, and yes, one lash will make a big difference to this, one 14mm length in that section as well. Or it can be a 13, or it can be a 15, it can be anything you want. Sometimes not for a client like this with very low brow spacing, but for some clients, I'll do up to 18mm in that section if they have round eyes and space, and you wouldn't believe how natural it looks. It does not have to be dramatic. One thing I will say though, the 14mm, it can only be used in wispy sets. You don't want to have a random 14mm fan in your set. So it either has to be wet lash or classics. And the cool thing about these digital tools is you can make the lash set look shorter, longer. You can try different lengths on them. And you're probably wondering why I'm drawing in between these lashes, and it's because the client has a very uneven eyelid and I don't want to keep that visible. That's another really important thing. So because the eyelid dips down, it's not in a really nice flattering sunset shape, I want to give her a bit more coverage, not necessarily density, but light coverage in that area so that it makes the eyelid shape look more flattering as well. So I would definitely mix some wet lashes and fans in for her. Okay, there you have it. So this is just a digital mock-up of a general mapping I think would look really great. And this is totally true to the mapping that I outlined for you of an overview of what that would look like on the client. This is the one we would have created had we followed my general lash mapping tips and tricks. I'd love to hear what you think. Do you like this one or this one more? And also, here are a couple round-eyed clients that I have mapped out using this general flow. Please do note though, guys, that your product choices make a huge difference to the outcome of the set. Every dimension, every diameter, every specific fan structure is going to fully change the outcome of the set. So just please know that these are just guidelines. This is the overall mapping flow, like shaping wise I would follow, and it's up to you to choose products that would truly suit your clients and their lash needs. This can look super wispy, this can look super fluffy, it can look however you want it, but your product choice is what's gonna dictate how it looks and how successful you are with mapping this out. So if you need more information on that, please do let us know in the comments below. Again, our trainings will completely change your styling outlook if you want to dive into those. In the meantime, that sums up today's video. I really hope you enjoyed. I hope this was helpful. And if you have any questions whatsoever, don't hesitate to leave them below. We'll see you in the next one.